with my dad. Just he always music and art, especially music, I think was his true religion. And I think that's where he felt closest to the universe. We'd sing Willie Nelson and Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. And I feel like it was a warning song for us in a way of watch out for this lifestyle.
Welcome to Overeducated and Underemployed. I just want to talk a little bit about AthFest. This is the first of several episodes that took place at AthFest. You're going to get a whole bunch of different angles. You're going to hear me talk to, this week, MK Barnes, who has been an Athens resident for a very long time. Grew up in a small town just outside of Athens and played the last couple AthFests. Talked to David Barbie. Talked to Dash Riprock and Lily Hyatt, who both played at AthFest this year. And I got a little glimpse at David Barbie's new project, Barnhouse, while I was at AthFest this year, and that's something to be excited about. So make sure you click like on this episode, hit subscribe to the channel, because we got a lot of really amazing stuff coming. In other news, the mothership, the new mothership, the third mothership, has landed over in New Orleans this past weekend. For those of y'all that were there, super jealous. I did not get to make that one. But make sure you check out my interview with Lige Curry. He talked all about that and more. I also have sat down with Shonda Clinton and Danny Bedrosian from Parliament Funkadelic as well. So you can get all kinds of insights to the Pink Funk world on this podcast, as well as Athens. After Athens, we got a little talk with Chris Skeen, but I also want to talk about my buddy Nate Ball, because me and him took over the live stream at AthFest a couple of times. Actually, he took it over a lot. He was gracious enough to let me and Drew Morgan come on there and talk to some people. I'm putting an episode together with clips of all of that. And then I'm putting another episode together covering all the music. So you got two kind of AthFest-focused episodes coming, as well as talking to several Athens musicians and musicians that played at AthFest. That being said, there's something here for everybody. So please hit subscribe. One thing that I've noticed when talking to all of these different artists over the last year and a half is that whether they're touring with someone like Parliament Funkadelic for years, or Weird Al Yankovic, or a somewhat regional act playing several gigs a month, but in the same kind of area and working a day job, there's a lot of similarities in the story, and most of it comes down to luck and opportunity. So I just want to point that out, and that's part of why I like to talk to some Grammy winners and also local artists, because I think finding the parallels in their stories is really interesting. That being said, I sat down with MK Barnes this week. It was one of the first things I did when I got to Athens. It was a great conversation. She played a great set at AthFest over at Hendershots, and you'll see some of that throughout this interview as well. Here's my interview with MK Barnes. Thanks for listening, y'all. Welcome to Overeducated and Underemployed. I'm here with MK Barnes, and I'm taller than her and sitting in a higher chair, so I feel a little bit like I'm towering over you. I'm just noticing that. But you're a singer and songwriter, but I'm going to start by asking you the same question I ask everybody, and that's, what's the first song that you remember loving as a kid?
It was, and I was ready for this because I listened to a couple of episodes. If We Never Meet Again by Merle, Haggard and the Strangers. It's an old gospel song that my dad introduced me to at a very young age. And I remember riding around in the truck and we would sing it. I think I didn't even know it was Merle Haggard. He knew it from Merle Haggard and the Strangers. He probably knew it from other artists as well. I think Ernest Tubb even did it.
Oh yeah. Haggard was actually one of my first concerts. So.
Oh, amazing. That's incredible. It's got this beautiful imagery about the river of life and how there's another meeting place, the side of heaven. So I guess right before you're getting to heaven, I don't know. I'm not a very religious person, neither was my dad, but he loved gospel songs and gospel music and a lot of music, old country music especially, and just where the charming roses bloom forever, where separation comes no more. And if we never meet again, the side of heaven, I'll meet you on that beautiful shore.
Do you remember what it was that captured you?
I think it was the imagery. Yeah, I think it was the imagery of the river and the roses that always bloomed, and that idea that I think we grew up Presbyterian, so we went to church because it was good for business for my dad. He was a TV salesman and TV repairman. And so he definitely kind of stressed that we had to be kind of seen. And so back then, I think I was all in for it. And I loved that idea of being able to say, okay, we're gonna meet again at this beautiful place that I'm sure I thought that I totally believed in and was totally gonna be there and probably see my dad and my mom. And yeah, so it was just, I think, comforting. And I also think it's just a great song, like rhythmically and musically on top of the imagery.
Did you like music a lot as a kid in general, or was that?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I remember I would play with my dad's records, pretend to be radio DJ with the records.
Would you like announce the songs and stuff in between?
I don't know that I would announce them, but I would definitely play a lot of Carter family records for him and Joan Baez, and he had a lot of, I'm trying to think of Jimmy Martin records, a lot of random stuff too. And then we had an 8-track player as well that we loved, and we had, I think, a Muppets Christmas Carol and Muppets Take Manhattan, those soundtracks.
I have Muppets Take Manhattan like on vinyl still.
We would drive places in his truck and we would always sing. And it was before I even knew how to sing, but I still loved it. Still loved singing with him and going places. And it annoyed my brother, especially my closest brother to my age, it annoyed him the most.
That probably made it even more fun, right? Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, this is what we do.
The thing is once you got the reaction.
Oh, yeah.
You were like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah, I know my dad made this joke, and I think about it every now and then. He's like, yeah, when I was your age, I thought I could sing too. But I guess persistence, and I did end up taking music lessons a few years ago and kind of was able to learn to hear myself and also learn about warming up, which is like the most important thing in singing. And I had no idea before.
I think about that even just like performing in general, like going up there without the right kind of like energy in your body even, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to like, okay, I'm like going from 0 to 60 without any kind of in between. So like even with comedy, I think like it's important to go have a funny conversation with somebody or get in that animated, energetic kind of mode, because like you can't just like pull it out of nowhere.
Right. 100%. Yeah. And I get super anxious. So I definitely.
Is it stage fright or is it something else?
It's definitely stage fright. It's gotten better, I'd say, over the years. It's definitely gotten easier. And I
think it's a lot more common than people think.
Yeah, it's like you get up there and then all of a sudden it's like my fingers don't work as well as they would normally, and a B minor chord is now like super hard to play, and it's like, I could do this no problem when no one's watching. But yeah, it has gotten a lot easier. I remember the first times I started doing open mics again when I moved back to Athens in 2019, and then obviously we had the pandemic. And then around 2022, I started doing open mics around town. And I remember I was literally shaking at one point. And then just the more I did them, the more exposure therapy there was. And then the easier those got. And then the more shows I've had, the easier those have gotten. So it's definitely.
Is there anything like in particular that you've done that's helped, you think? Or is it just like literally just exposure therapy?
I think it's literally exposure therapy. And I think it's just doing it over and over again. And also.
And the world not ending after you do it.
One of my friends told me, she was like, hey, no one's here to see you fail. Everybody's here to see you succeed. Everybody wants.
I think that's true for music. I don't know if that's true for comedy. I think it depends. It depends on the room.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of time though, and like I heard Pete Holmes talk about this one time where he's like, especially when you're at like his level, everybody that goes to see him is like the funniest person in their friend group. Oh. And so the idea that it's like, what do you got? Like, how are you? You have to. I talked about this with Shane Moss actually, and it's almost like you have to force the audience to have a mini ego death to get them to like break through in laughter.
That makes sense.
Where I think in music, you're right. I think most people are not like, there's assholes out there, right?
Oh, 100%.
You're gonna have hecklers in any art, I think, but in music, I think overall it is much more supportive, both among musicians and. Now, I think the comedy scene in Athens is really healthy, but there's a lot of pettiness in a lot of comedy scenes. Oh, wow. And I don't see that as much in music scenes, which is interesting. But yeah, so anyway, I feel like I went on a little tangent there, but do you think that was the source of any of your anxiety? Like, did you feel like...
Oh, I thought everybody was judging me.
Okay.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I felt, especially... I was like, I'm not a real musician. And it's like, what is it? What is a real musician? I write songs, I play guitar. Why didn't I not feel like a real musician? I felt like maybe there was this in crowd or something, right? Like these.
It's imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's, oh, I'm not going to be accepted. There's so many talented musicians in this town. There's no way people are going to want to see me. And yeah, totally imposter syndrome. I get that at work too, a lot. And I think the only way through it is just to fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I think that's true too. And also, I think listening to your body is, because a lot of the time anxiety is excitement, but being channeled in a weird way, especially when it comes to, I think, performance anxiety. It's like you're not allowing yourself to be excited about this thing. And so it becomes anxiety.
Yeah, like where you put it instead of, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I think the other side of that, though, is you listening to your body. If something really doesn't feel right, but that's a fine line, figuring out where that all lands.
And I try to like...
I've been really into somatic tracking lately. I don't know. Sorry.
Oh, no. That's interesting. I try and find someone in the audience to focus on, a few people to move around on, and just find a friendly face. Okay.
So you're not...
So I'm not like thinking about the whole crowd.
You're not staring at the wall behind it either, though.
I'm just like, okay, here's someone that's into it, and I'm going to focus on that, and then drown out the crowd and things like that. Not that I have huge crowds or anything like that,
but the idea is you find the potentials for real connection with your audience, and you focus on those.
And friends, especially to support as well.
Yeah. So I want to back up a little bit, though.
Sure.
Just because I feel like we jumped all the way to 2019.
Absolutely, we did.
And I want to know, as a kid, you're singing all the time, but
yes.
Did you play guitar or any other instrument? Were you in band in school or anything like that?
I was in band. But from a young age, my father had guitars lying around the house. And he wasn't going to suggest that we learn how to play. But as soon as we were ready to ask him, he was ready to teach us. And so the first song he ever taught me was On Top of Old Smoky. And then my brother at the same time. So I was 13 when I learned how to play the guitar, or started to learn how to play
the guitar. Was it the Meatballs version?
No, it was the original On Top of Old Smoky. But the Meatballs version is good. I think I probably did throw that in a little bit, because why would a 13-year-old not do that? It definitely
Yeah.
did, now that you mention it. And then my brother had this R.E.M. at a time songbook, chord book. And so the second song I learned how to play was Country Feedback.
And you grew up in Athens.
And I grew up near Athens.
Okay. Yeah.
So
You were in like
small
a
town.
small town, right?
Yeah, it's called Union Point. It's about an hour-ish, a little less than southeast of here.
So was Athens going to the big city?
Yeah, Athens was the closest nice grocery store, mall, movie theater. Pretty much anything you really couldn't get in our small town or the next town over, we went to Athens. And I want to say a couple of times a month at least. And it was really exciting.
I feel like the way you just talked about it, I feel like people that grew up in Athens proper, sometimes they start to take it for granted.
Yeah.
Like they as an outsider, I think a lot of people here appreciate what they have a lot, right? But I don't think they realize how unique and special it is too. If that makes sense. Like,
I agree.
I think people, they have a true appreciation and love of the music scene, but I don't think they realize how unique it is here.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And I don't think even growing up outside of here and coming here, I don't think I realized how unique it was until I lived elsewhere and desperately just wanted to come back to Athens.
So did you start playing music before you left Athens?
Yeah, so timeline wise, started playing when I was about 13, was in bands. I wanted to play the trumpet, but the band director volunteered me to play the baritone, which our family couldn't afford to buy a baritone. We had a trumpet, we didn't have a baritone. And so I really wasn't into that, but I would practice scales on the guitar. And so then I would be able to play them in band class. And then I think I did that for 1 year and then was like, yeah, I'm done. But he was a great band director, very generous. And then like I said, with my dad, music and art, especially music, I think was his true religion. And I think that's where he felt closest to the universe. And I remember I just thought of this, along with the old gospel songs, we'd sing Willie Nelson and Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. And I feel like it was a warning song for us in a way of watch out for this lifestyle and on the road again. So I think definitely having that love of music, growing up with that, and then having my dad and my mom had a good taste in music as well. She loved a lot of the same musicians that my dad loved, but also Elvis. She loved Elvis. I know she told us she was like front row in an Elvis concert when she was younger.
Oh, wow. I just recently watched that epic, the Baz Luhrmann, like.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
So he did the Elvis movie, Baz Luhrmann did, with Austin Butler. And I thought it was a really good movie. But this is restored concert footage from his Vegas residency.
Oh, wow.
And it's throughout, you can tell it's from different, obviously even different time periods of it because he did it so long. But man, it was brilliant. And a lot of it was the rehearsals for it too. They shot a lot of the rehearsals for it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I feel like I've recently gotten a new appreciation of Elvis that I never had before after watching it. I think it was really well done. And the reason it immediately made me think of it is it felt like being at the front row of an Elvis concert.
That's so cool. I want to check it out. Yeah, I definitely really appreciate growing up with my parents' taste in music and my siblings as well. My sister was into R.E.M. before we were into R.E.M. and she was into the Indigo Girls. And then my brother got into R.E.M. and encouraged me. I got a CD player when I was in 4th or 5th grade when they first came out. I was like, I have to have a CD player. This is what I want for Christmas, and I was obsessed with it. And so I was lucky enough that my parents did get me a CD player that year. And so at first only had maybe, I think they got me an American Tail 5 Goes West soundtrack.
Somewhere out there's a banger, man.
And then I bought my first CD, I think at Wax Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was R.E.M's At a Time. And my brother.
Had you already learned the song at that?
No, then. So this was before learning the song. This was a few years before. We, at the same time as buying R.E.M. At a Time, I bought MC Hammer, the Too Legit to Quit.
Nice. Oh,
and
yeah.
so those were the 2 CDs I bought, the first CDs. And then my sister was into Toad the Wet Sprocket, and so we got into Toad the Wet Sprocket. And I remember also in elementary school, my elementary school best friend and I would sing songs off the Faire album, like Walking on the Water, Step on the Stone.
Yeah.
And so it always felt like music was a part of my life.
But also like a very diverse, eclectic mix of it, it sounds like. It's not like you were just listening to folk or just listening to country or just listening to MC Hammer.
Right. Oh, I even had a tape. We had a tape of, New Kids on the Block, I think, at some point too. And I think that's, yeah, so just definitely had a lot of taste from, a lot of influence from popular culture as well as my family. And I remember I would go over, I had another friend in middle school, and I think elementary school, and I would go to her house, and I would get obsessed with these songs, right? If We Never Meet Again.
Just play it on repeat.
And some I didn't even have maybe a copy of, but I just knew from my dad. So our dad taught us.
Did you ever tape stuff off the radio?
All the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. Oh gosh, making mixtapes. That was fun. Really loved making mixtapes.
I think I was talking about this with Hardy. I can't remember, but there's something special about a mix CD or a mixtape, or that tangible thing that you give to somebody that has like all of this baggage. Really, like a lot of, like, a mixtape is literally just, it's like baggage on a piece of plastic. But if you make someone a playlist,
it just doesn't have the same.
And almost the same amount of effort goes into it.
For sure.
But it does not hit the same.
No, it doesn't hit the same. I feel like with the mixtapes especially, like you had these transitions, especially.
Yeah.
That you were like, okay, gotta record now, and then
and to set a mood.
This song, yeah, and the next song's gotta flow. And so it definitely felt like a piece of art. And I remember, when I was learning to drive, so I must have been 15, and we had gotten a car with a tape player, like a Ford Tempo that we were driving, and I was driving my dad, so I had my learner's license, and he'd come to pick me up at my aunt's house, and I had left a tape in the car, and the tape had Graham Parsons, Wilco, Passenger Side, and then a couple of Graham Parsons songs from the GP.
The Grievous Angels.
Yeah.
I love that
CD.
Yeah, I
like
love that record.
Yeah.
So much. And also like the Birds, Sweetheart of the Rodeo. The only time he was in the Birds. Like,
yeah, and you had to get like the deluxe version to get the ones with Graham Parsons in it, because they had to take him out due to the record contract, I think.
I don't think I ever knew any other version except the deluxe.
Same actually. Was really excited to get that. And my dad figured out this way he loved Passenger Side. And I remember, so he came to get me, and I thought I would be driving, and he's like, oh no, this song's changed my life. I'm going to be driving. I'm not sitting in the passenger side. So he loved that song. Right. And he figured out how to play, if he turned it over, he would get the Graham Parsons songs and then the passenger side song. And then he would just play those songs on the tape, and he figured, I just remember but I was also disappointed, because I thought I was going to be driving him. I thought this was my practice time. And he's like, nope, I'm driving. And then he gave me plenty of time to drive after that. That was really cool.
What were some of the first concerts that you remember going to
Oh, the very first one was at Legion Field.
see? Okay.
And a band called Addison Blue.
Okay.
And I just happened to go with my brother. My brother took me because Addison Blue was on this Sorry Ma Forgot to Take Out the Cat cover record.
Yeah.
A Humane
like
Society benefit.
Okay. Yeah.
for Athens Humane Society, and Addison Blue did The Ledge.
Okay.
And I love that. I love that whole album. I remember seeing it at Wax Street and just was like, I know the Replacements. I've heard my brother talk about them. I need this CD. So I bought it. And so then my brother found out about this Addison Blue concert, and he took me, and I was able to buy their EP on this blue record. And it was magical. The next one.
Once again, the tangible
Thing. And I always kind of hope Addison Blue comes back for some kind of reunion at some point. And then the next concert was actually R.E.M. and it was Monster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Monster tour. And what happened was my brother and his friends had gotten tickets and they weren't very good. And then they were able to get better tickets. So they sold their worst tickets to me and my friends. So we got to go.
You got hand-me-down tickets.
We got hand-me-down tickets. So my two best friends and I went to the Monster tour, and it was really funny because they turned around to play to every side except for us. We were like, oh no, but it was still magical. It was great. Mike Mills, it looked like he was wearing a nudie suit. And
how old were you?
I must have been 13 or 14.
Okay.
I want to say at the oldest, I don't believe I was driving yet.
Okay.
But I think I must have been 14 or 15. I'm thinking.
And so you had already bought their CDs and learned how to play their song. You were all in at that point.
I was
before
all
you
in
even
on
saw
R.E.M.
them.
I was totally obsessed. I had the automatic for the people. After absconded away with my brothers at a time songbook, and then he bought and I absconded away with his automatic for the people songbook. And I actually remember, so loved R.E.M., just totally obsessed with R.E.M., and my friends were too, so it was great. We would rent videos from Vision Video, and they had these R.E.M. concerts and R.E.M. music video compilations.
Tour film is the one that me the fuck away. I've actually never gotten to see R.E.M. live. I never did get to see them, but tour film showed me this side of Stipe that I had never really saw before. He was such a fucking showman that I just never really connected it in that way until I saw that movie. So if you haven't seen tour film, go watch. I
think that was definitely one of the ones.
It has to be
that we watched,
because it was like their first world tour or something like that.
And I think it was Vision Video that we rented them from. So yeah, and when I was young, so I would take my guitar places, and my dad got me this Yamaha guitar that he bought from a friend of ours family. And so I would take it places, and I had my R.E.M. songbook, and I remember I was at, of all places, Reynolds Plantation.
Okay. And
I didn't realize this at the time. So I was in my bathing suit with my guitar and my R.E.M. songbook, and who walks by me but Michael Stipe and says, "Excuse me." And as I'm like with the songbook and my guitar, and I'm like just frozen, like. And then I found out that I think Mike Mills and his family have lake houses out there. So,
oh, gotcha.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was like my first Michael Stipe encounter. First of a few.
I've heard all kinds of stories. It kind of reminds me of, so in Tallahassee, people have those stories about George Clinton. Like my stepdad, you see him at the Olive Garden, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and I remember when I was in, this is the most embarrassing story, but when I was in college and I was a freshman, one of my friends this other guy was hitting on him, and he was like, "Oh, come to the Go Bar, Michael's gonna be there." And he's like, "I can't see Michael, I'm just too drunk." And then I was also drunk, underage. And I was like, "I'll go. I wanna go." And so here's this drunk girl at the Go Bar, not drinking anymore, fortunately, but and that's when I confirmed that it was Michael Stipe, when I was a teenager, and I was like, so have
Did you
ever
ask?
been?
You
Yeah,
asked him.
I was like,
Okay.
hey, so have you ever been to this place called? Fortunately, they changed their name. They're no longer Reynolds Plantation. It's Reynolds Landing, and we only went because we had a friend who worked there who got us in to use the pool and things. And there were like summer camps and things that our friend's mom invited us to, which is really kind and generous. But that's a whole other side of our county. My parents had an opportunity to invest in Reynolds, but they were like, no, that's a mud hole. That's not going to go anywhere. And then it blew up, and then
the Everglades.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, so I did, and
they've tried to drain those several times. It's super weird. So when did you start writing your own songs?
Okay, so yeah, the first song I ever wrote, I wrote while I was in college. So I went to UGA, and then I went one summer. I want to say it was in between maybe my sophomore and junior year, or freshman and sophomore year. I went to stay with my sister. She had a job in Durham, North Carolina.
Okay.
And she hated it. And her now husband was living in Gainesville, Florida, in a band with my brother, Bud, who's going to play with me on this Friday, which I'm super excited about, my brother. I should come with a warning label right now. So you don't ask me how I'm doing, and you don't ask me how I am. Everything keeps changing. But so he was there, she was alone in Durham. And so she asked my mom if I could come stay with her for the summer. And then just because she was so miserable. And so I did. And I got a job at a record store, Disco Round. And that was really cool. And
my second job was at a record store.
Yeah, my second job too. My first one was at Ingles, the grocery store.
Oh,
that was not as fun. But the record
my
store
first
was
job
great.
was at a concert venue. I was like flyering parking lots at 15 because they knew I wouldn't get arrested because I was underage.
Nice.
They were like, you can trespass consequence free.
So yeah, I remember also, so she would work all day. And so then when I wasn't working, I was just kind of sitting around her apartment. And I wrote this song. I was a little homesick. I ended up writing my first song there at her apartment. I had a joke song about kind of being far away from home, and it was stuck in Folsom Prison. And it was like that same kind of thing about feeling like Durham was a prison. So similar to I think how my sister felt. And that didn't go anywhere, obviously. But then the Margaret's Grove is the first song I ever wrote. And it's about the road I grew up on. There's a different Margaret's Grove in Union Point that my dad would take me on motorcycle rides. But I gave our road that name because for my grandmother, Margaret. And so I was away from home. I was a little bit homesick. And so I wrote this song about my family. And it starts out, this old dirt road runs through deserted farmland. And my line was, it flies by broken trees and power lines. But my sister heard when she recorded it, it's blighted by broken trees and power lines. And I was like, oh, I like that. So I ended up adapting it. And then there's a verse in there about my brothers running through a rain shower. And there's a verse about my sister and I picking wildflowers, which is actually a funny story that may or may not have been a dream, may have been real. When we were really little, I have this memory of going out into the woods, and she made me wear a fur coat and pretend to be like, it had to have been a dream. It could not have been real. Trying to distract the hunters, because you don't wear a fur coat in the woods when there could be
sounds
hunters.
really, yeah, it sounds,
pretend to be dead so she could do these flowers. It had to have
been. It doesn't sound like a real situation.
No. And I always had such vivid dreams as a child and as an adult. Oh gosh, yeah. I just had a crazy one the other day.
Do you think a lot of your songs come from your dreams?
I think There are aspects for sure that come from dreams. Yeah, a song I wrote about my brother. I have one brother who passed away. He was in a car accident when he was 27. And I had a dream one night. It's actually going to be 20 years this year.
Wow.
And it was awful and terrible, but it also brought the rest of my family closer.
Yeah.
And I feel like with every loss, the ones that remain, we've been able just to stay close and get closer and honor the people that we've lost by remembering them and living well and living in a way to be proud of, that they'd be proud of, and doing things that they would be proud of. And so I definitely feel like that affected me a lot. But I dreamt one night that he came to me and he said, if it's not fun, don't do it. And then I changed it a bit to be like, you came to me in a dream last night and you told me I had to hold on, but I awoke too soon and you were gone. I don't really play that song as much just because I think it is really sad. There's a question I'll have and you're the only one who would know. And yeah, it was also a very early song, so 2006. So I guess my first one was about 2001. And then I was I feel like slow songwriter at first. And it's really only recently that I felt like I've started being more prolific and writing more, because I realized like you just have to be okay writing bad things to get the good things. And there might be good parts of a bad song. So you can write a bad song, but you can get good things out of it and then reuse them for other things. And it took me a long time to realize that.
Yeah, I think that's something I still struggle with jokes. I'm so hypercritical of myself and of like, there's so many things that don't cut the mustard for me that I come up with that other people might really like, but they never leave my mouth on stage because I'm just like, nope, I'm not doing that. I think, so let me ask you this, and it's probably two questions. So when you first started writing songs, like, how do you make that decision? Did it come to you and you were like, I have to get this out of me? Or was it like, I want to write a song now?
It definitely came to me, and it felt, I think Townes Van Zandt once described it like with Poncho and Lefty. It's just that it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And just
Patterson Hood has talked about it being like an antenna that he has up.
Yeah, I feel that. It would just come at times. And I think that's why I wasn't very prolific with it at first either, because not having something to write everything down with, you miss a lot of moments. Like a lot of my songs come from things like one warning label on my album, Laissez, Faire, is actually about my mom and her death. And I was following the ambulance and my sister was following me. And I was watching my sister. I was like, I was just keeping both of those things. And I was like, as I was driving, I was like, this is a song. And then it turned into one. A few months after that.
Now, more recently, do you think you write with a little bit more intention sometimes?
100%. More recently.
How do you think that shift happened?
I went to a songwriters retreat.
Okay.
And Andrea Slope, I believe, is the songwriter. And I found it, I want to say randomly, maybe with probably an email that came in. And so I had a conversation with her because we were talking about inspiration. And she told me, think about it, if Stephen King waited for inspiration to strike, we wouldn't have all these Stephen King books.
Yeah.
And so and then she just said, you gotta just write the bad stuff. You just gotta write. You just spend time. And then another sort of mentor for me, Dodd Farrell in town, when I was hosting these open mics in Winterville, he would be like, I want you to have another song next week. And he'd be like, have a new song. And then he had the conversation.
Kind of like challenging you.
Yeah, challenging for sure. And then he would say, what's your writing habit like? What do you do? I write in the morning. Do you set time to write? And I was like, no, I don't set time to write. And I still don't probably set as much time to write, but I definitely do. I feel like sit down with a guitar more and a notebook and kind of work out some chords. One of the more recent songs, some songs are really literal and some songs are more obviously figurative, but I wrote this Dirt in My Eye song that I'm going to be playing on Friday. And so it's a fairly new song. I moved in February and I was out here in my yard and I was weeding and a piece of dirt flew in my eye. And then later that night, I was cleaning the old house, my sister's rental property that I had been renting. And I was like, there's dirt in my eye. And so I ended up writing the song while I was like sweeping and cleaning, and then realized like, oh, actually there's something here. And so I had voice memos to record. And I feel like having those voice memos has also been super helpful to capture those moments, because I think it's a lot of phrasing and a lot of these ideas that just come, and it's really a magical experience if I think about it, like writing a song, like creating this, and then when's the next one? When's the next one gonna come?
It is magic.
Yeah.
It literally, I think that's what art is, kind of, in general.
I agree.
Like, you know,
It's
like
definitely magic.
it's, yeah. And that's why sometimes I wonder, some of the questions I ask people, I'm like, is there even a tangible answer that they could give to some of these questions? Because it really is just like a magic trick.
It's for sure. And one of the things I learned at the retreat is just to also have writing exercises where you write about something like a tree in the backyard or a fence or just anything, and then just being descriptive with that. And then also using Placeholder. Actually, this is something I also got from Andrew Rieger from Elf Power. Always never quite sure how to say his last name. But
it's okay. I don't know either. That's fine.
And he was telling me he uses Placeholder like laws and la-di-da, just like syllables, instead of words sometimes, just to get the tune. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting.
Just to get the right meter or whatever. Yeah. It's like, until you point it out, I love Elf Power and I'm super excited to see them this weekend.
They're great.
Awesome. But yeah, like, you really can just kind of doctor the meter however you want with a little bit of cadence or whatever. That's interesting.
So that shifted, I feel like, songwriting for me a little bit from having the words and making music for the words to having something more rhythmic to create. And so now I feel like I'll do both. So an idea will come to me. I might just write out a whole song sometimes and not realize it even at the time until I come back to it later and I'm like, oh, wait, that's a song that I don't even really remember writing down. Or I'll do it the way with Placeholder, syllables and stuff. And Andrew's was so helpful, especially when I started getting back into writing, and I would send him songs and go, what's your opinion? And he would say, oh yeah, I like this refrain. I think you should repeat it at the end. And that was super helpful for me to have these artists in town who are so willing to help you, so very willing to give you advice, and it's a very supportive network, and we are so lucky.
Yeah.
It's not one thing.
So I want to, first of all, yes, back to what we were talking about earlier. It's really special and it's super unique too.
It is.
Which kind of leads me to where I wanted to. You implied earlier that A, a couple of things. You moved away for a while and came back, and B, that you played music, then didn't play music, and then started playing music again.
Yeah.
And so maybe we can I don't know if
let's
you can
talk
just elaborate on that a little
And
bit.
I would say I always had my guitar with me wherever I lived, and I would play it. I don't think I would play it as often as I do now, where I try and play every day. I don't quite play every day, but I try really hard to play every day. But there was a time when might go months without playing, and
Where did you move to?
Chapel Hill, North Carolina was the first place I lived outside of Athens.
Was that pretty much the same time you stopped playing?
I actually was playing then still, and I even had a few shows. It was more, I feel like the shows were very opportunistic. I had a friend coming into town, so they wanted a show, and so that would be...
You'd put something together.
Yeah, for them, but not for myself. And I'd be like, oh yeah, let's do that. We'll do that. And that would be the...
It's hard to do good things for yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Motivation is the word I was looking for. That was one.
Yeah.
But it was more, I was definitely focused on grad school. I went to library and information science school and...
Museum studies here.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice. So right along those lines.
For sure. We had a lot of the same like classes and stuff with those people in my college, at least.
Yes, 100%. We had those as well in archives, and so I was there for 2 years.
Okay.
And then my brother died, and which I love. Chapel Hill's wonderful.
Not like Durham.
And Durham has its own charm. But I was in an apartment in Durham, and I wasn't really... And so my sister and I would do things sometimes, but she was working full time. So it's kind of... And I was lucky. I had one friend who lived in Winston-Salem, and she ended up coming to get me and taking me, or maybe my sister let me use her car. I can't remember, but I met her for lunch once, and that was like the highlight of like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving. And we had I loved that time with my sister.
Yeah.
100%.
But it doesn't sound like Durham was the reason.
No, and it was just felt like I was in this apartment all day.
But Chapel Hill, you really enjoyed the city, right?
I loved Chapel Hill. I had great friends. I was fortunate enough to meet Ray Berg, who lives here now, actually. He was one of the first people I met in Chapel Hill because Tim Scriber and I drove up and before I was moving, and he introduced me to Ray and his friends, and it was such a great community of people. Just, they'd have cookouts, and I lived briefly in their house, but ended up finding something else, which worked a little bit better because their house, the door wouldn't even lock. And I don't know, coming from my mother inside me, she used to call me, is your door locked? Is your door locked? So that kind of made me a little OCD about door locking. So I ended up finding a different place and living there, but still being friends with Ray and his roommates and hanging out.
You could have just bought him a lock.
I know. I think I tried to buy a lock for my doors would work, and yeah, it was a very old house. I'm sure that they sold it.
I'm just being silly too.
Money.
But...
Yeah, no, it was a great house, a great old house, and it was a great place to hang out and have friends. And we ended up having a party for Teenage Fan Club there with Kevin Lane and Matt Lane and Wendy came out to see Teenage Fan Club. They're like, hey, do you guys want to party afterwards? And I was like, well, yeah, I just moved here, and so they came over with their entourage. And we had this party, and one of my new roommates that I had just met was like, okay, there is someone that I had just met. He's like, oh, there is someone I know here. But that was a great first experience in Chapel Hill, the Teenage Fan Club. And then they called me the next day, and we went to this car burritos place and got burritos. And I'm, oh wow, I'm so starstruck. I'm hanging out with Teenage Fan Club. Actually, they signed my poster up there. It's Teenage Fan Club and the Rosebuds, and just got them all to sign. I think someone says thanks for the party. But yeah, Chapel Hill was fun, and grad school obviously was the reason I was there. A lot of work as well, but mostly fun. And it was so much like Athens, but I was still really homesick for Athens. And now I feel like I'm a little homesick for Carrboro and Chapel Hill a little bit, but I have friends there and I still go visit them.
Do you think there was a correlation between the Porter music scene and you playing?
Yeah, I definitely do. And in Chapel Hill, it's not the same as Athens as far as when I was there, as far as the supportive scene. I remember.
I don't think anything is. I really don't think anything is like Athens. Really.
I remember my friend L in Japanese. His name's L in Japanese, and he was opening up for. I want to say it was the Coup. Or
Boots Riley.
Like that. Yeah. Or
the Coup.
The
like
Coup.
Yeah, Boots Riley's group.
I want to say it was that, and he's come on, show up like this for your local musicians and your local bands. You've got a lot of talent here, and just you need to show up for them.
Yeah.
And because that was the hard part, and there was like this joke I think my brother-in-law told me of like people in Chapel Hill when they go see a band, they just stand around and look bored. And I don't see that in Athens. Like when people go to a show, no one's bored.
No, sometimes now if you go see like a Mike Mills show, they might be talking until they play an R.E.M. song, but
right. The talking is super annoying, especially when you've got a bunch of drunk people.
It's not as though it's not as bad as my hometown.
Yeah, and we're really lucky. I think there's just like maybe a couple of people in the 40 watt sometimes, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna go sit over here.
Yeah, and it's never like
from you. It's not.
It's never like you can't find a place away from it.
100%.
Yeah,
you can always.
There's shows in Tallahassee where you literally like why are any of you here? Because they're just talking, and like you're the only one trying to watch the show.
But I saw some really great shows in Chapel Hill.
I bet it was amazing.
Amazing.
I've never seen the Coup, but I bet that is like one of the best shows out there.
My friends came up for that show, and I remember hanging out with them in their hotel room. And then, so that was really exciting. I had people from Athens come. I was always excited when people from Athens came to Chapel Hill. Show them around.
I had Mike White come to my house, and like we both did covered P-Funk Fest. He was photographing it, and I was like filming for the podcast, and he stayed at my end. That was super exciting to me. I was like, oh, I get to show somebody from Athens my little world or whatever. It was anyway. Shout out to Mike White. Love you, dude.
Yes, for sure. And yeah, Tres Chicas. I remember seeing them there, and that was an amazing show. And so I saw some of the greatest shows there.
So you have a really eclectic music taste. Have you always played pretty much like folk music, or do you think have you ever experimented with other stuff?
It's mostly been like folk.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word, I know no one likes the term Americana these days.
Sure.
But
I just don't think it means a whole lot.
No, I don't think it does either.
Because it can really literally mean jazz or country. It does mean something.
It doesn't tell us a whole lot. You're 100% right about that. But I definitely feel like it's like a folky, indie singer-songwriter.
Maybe even a little bit of like shoegaze in there sometimes. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base there, but the guitar work a little bit sometimes just kind of reminds me of some of that stuff. But
I'll check that out.
So, and you use a lot of imagery in your songs too, which kind of harkens back to the first song you ever loved. I feel like that's something that's been persistent. Is that conscious, or do you think that's just like how it happens?
I think it's how it happens because I always worry that I don't use enough, especially after I went to that songwriters retreat. It's like imagery.
There's something about forced imagery though that it's so tacky. I think it's like a good guitar solo. You use it at the right
place,
time.
For sure. And it's more, and a lot of times I feel like it's a feeling I'm trying to capture.
Yeah.
And how do you capture this feeling? There's no real imagery for it.
It's a magic trick. So what kind of got you back into playing when you moved back to Athens?
Yeah. Really, I lived downtown for about a year, and I had broken up with, I moved back to Athens for a relationship that ended in the pandemic. My best friend now, I will say, we have managed to save that part of our relationship and have a great friendship
I feel like you said in a song that wasn't true, but that must have been someone else.
That was someone else.
I just remember that line where you're like, I lied when I said we could be friends.
It's definitely someone else.
I know, yeah. I assume.
But yeah, that's like a crush gone wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And also, I think that's a lot of where my songs come from, or like I am so sensitive to rejection that I don't even know if that crush knew how much I liked him. Really, honestly, maybe he had an idea, maybe he didn't, I don't know. But I got a lot of songs out of it, so that was good. And then I had a short relationship last year, and I got a lot of songs out of that one too.
I think that's how you know whether you're like actually an artist or not, because like I think a lot of people, they go through something horrible like that, and that would never be like their final conclusion or outlook of this. Like, oh, I got a lot of songs out of it. Whereas like I feel like most artists, like that's where they end up landing, even like the horrible shit.
Yeah,
they end up landing like, oh, I got some good stuff out of it.
And even like the name of the album, Laissez, Faire, came from just that idea of I was in a relationship with someone who didn't want to be in a relationship, but then acted like they were in a relationship, but then got defensive about not wanting to be in a serious relationship. And then I'm like, one night I was at Gillian Welch with my friend, and I'm like, it's just like laissez-faire dating. It's just no rules. And who can handle this? And that's where the name came from. And
it's all too much. Yeah, it's just too much. It's too much on us. Lately I'm finding more ways to cope, clinging to a tiny bit of hope. So I'm spending my time with my family and friends, and we're waiting for this to end.
I tried to make it work for a little while, and then just realized like it's just not going to work. And just realizing when to step back and be like, okay, this is not good for me as a person. But these songs are super healing. And I think that's a lot of what my songs have done for me. Like with my mom's death, with my dad's death, they've helped me, and my brother's death, they've helped me heal. Yeah. They've helped me process. They've helped me become a better person, I hope. And yeah, so I know I felt like I was in a writer's block when I had that relationship end. I'd written like one song while I was with him. It was called Birds of a Feather, and just about how we're so alike, but we just can't seem to make this work. And that's because we were just better as friends. And then I just felt like I had a block and I couldn't write anything. And then I had that really helped me get back into writing. And that helped me get, okay, it helped me get back into this frame of mind of, yes, I can write songs and I can do this. This is not hard. I can do this. And then, as I said, focusing in, I think too, I'm so lucky right now. I have the greatest music teacher. His name's Breck Allen. I happened to go to one of his sessions with a friend of mine. She lives in Nashville, and she was taking voice lessons from him, and she let me tag along. And so it was so beneficial to me because he gave me tips on how to hold the pick. I never learned specifically how to hold the pick. He taught me the prom queen wave with the pick, and how you want this perfect edge of your fingers and the pick, and it's this texture where it's not just the pick hitting the strings, because that's kind of jarring, obviously. And I said, oh, do you do online virtual lessons? And he was like, actually, I do. And so I started doing lessons with him once a week, and I've been doing that since 2023. And that has really helped me grow as an artist. And he helps me with songwriting. He helps me with phrasing. He helps me with rhythm. He's helped me tremendously with rhythm. And
what's the goal or the motivation for you with this stuff, like with your music? Is it like you just want to what is it?
I think I just want to get better and always improve, and then always just have it as a part of my life. And like I obviously have we haven't talked about this much, but I work for a consulting company in Atlanta, and I'm mostly remote, but I go in once a week.
I try not to push people too much on their day jobs in case it gets them in trouble.
Gotcha. Well, I'm very lucky to have a flexible job I can, in my evenings, turn it off and focus
Right.
on songwriting. And so I'm able to have, you know, that steady income, and then also have, which I love my job, I love what I do, but then being able to write and being able to perform, and it's a very
Do
supportive
you actually
environment.
use
I
what you
do actually.
That's amazing.
I work in, so it's
Like almost
basically-
nobody got one of those and uses it.
It's very interesting because when I started working for this agency, they asked me, okay, so you have this master's in library and information science. Tell us about this, because we've noticed that people with your background seem to be doing this job really well. So the job's about metadata and digital asset
Right.
management. And it's, yeah, no, this is the same
It's
thing.
literally just like an archivist,
Yeah.
only in a different setting or whatever.
So now there's quite a few of us from that background
Nice.
at the company. And
Were you like kind of the one that
I was
kind of-
one of the first, that's for
Nice.
sure. And they're like, it seems like such a good fit with you and your experience. And I've been so lucky to grow with the company.
Yeah.
And as they've grown, I've grown.
you got them to
And-
hire a bunch more
Yeah, we got
information
more
science
information
people.
scientists there, librarians and archivists, and I
Woo!
got them to post on the Society of Georgia Archives listserv for jobs,
Nice,
and
nice.
so that got some really great people.
Just like meeting the people that like where they already are. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such a supportive environment and just really progressive friends. And
And this is not all of what I'm after, but part of it is like you're not trying to turn this into another career.
not necessarily, I want to like always do it. I want to keep writing. My goal is by the end of this year to have enough material for another album. I'm almost there. I think I've got like 8 or 9 songs. I've got one in the works with my friend Stephen Chambliss
Cool.
that we're working on together. So that's a fun experiment as well. And so that's my goal, is to have another album worth of songs and to play out every once in a while and to foster relationships with other musicians.
Which is more fun for you, like the writing and recording or the playing out?
Oh, the writing and the recording. I feel like the playing out is an important part of it, because, and there was at one point, because I would just get so in my head about it, I remember turning to one of my friends, Hope, who's an amazing guitarist and songwriter herself. And I was like, why am I doing this to myself? And she's like, because people need to hear your songs from you and your perspective as a songwriter. And she's, I see you get really nervous when you do covers. Well, don't do covers, just do your own stuff. you
There's
know?
enough people doing covers. I
Yeah.
promise you.
My brother wants to do some covers on Friday.
Oh,
We'll have
okay.
2,
Well,
but
yeah. No,
mostly it's the original.
I'm just.
But no, yeah.
No, I'm just
Agree, though.
making
Like-
fun of like all the cover
Exactly.
bands.
Well, and that's the thing. And you get so nervous, like when you're doing other people's songs, just do your own songs. And then I started doing that with my last show. I didn't do any covers, and I was like, oh yeah,
I
this
can't
is
even
a lot
imagine
better.
doing another comedian's jokes. You know what I mean?
Do.
And I
Yeah.
think some comics, like when they're first starting or whatever, they wish they could, but it's so personal.
Yeah.
A good joke or a good song comes from such a personal place. I really think so. That it's weird to me. I'm not against covers all the time or
Sure.
in general, but I do think there is something weird about covering somebody else's song or even doing karaoke. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Some of it's weird. It's just,
Oh, karaoke. Oh my God.
I love
Karaoke
karaoke.
is so hard. I
Not a karaoke person, huh?
So I used to be really into it, and I would always do It's the End of the World as We Know It, because I could remember most of the words back then.
Yeah, nobody can keep up with that one.
It's, but I would want to do both parts. I would want to do Michael Stipe and Mike Mills at the same time.
I just remembered, so that tour film movie that I was talking about earlier, when they played that song, it's so fast that they couldn't get the video and the audio in sync. You can tell that Michael Stipe, like they couldn't get it to sync up
yeah.
properly. And so they don't show his face very much during the song, and because it was just so fast
Yeah.
that they couldn't get the video synced. Like,
Yeah, I believe it. I believe I actually want to watch that again now that you mention it, because gosh,
it's so good.
yeah,
So
yeah, I
good.
remember it, and I want to definitely see that. And also, I have Athens, Georgia, Inside Out. I want to
Oh,
watch
yeah,
that
that's a
again.
great
I haven't
one.
seen that in a while.
There's a thing, I think they've got like a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter or something like that to do like a full restoration of it.
Oh, amazing.
I'll make sure that.
Yeah, please send that
like,
my way. I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah.
One of the artists in there was actually from Greene County, and he had all of this, and it was a reverend and his wife, and they were singing at a piano together.
Nice.
African-American couple, and they had, I remember we always drove by where they lived on the way to school in Woodville, and he had all this art outside, just all this folk art and all this beautiful, and then when he passed away, it just went away. And I don't know where it went to and if they just threw it away but it was beautiful. And I always remember being like so proud. Oh, that's in the next town over from me, and being able to drive to Philomath with my dad on drives, and finding that stuff around, I feel like it was really cool growing up. So yeah, I started going to AthFest definitely when I was in college. And so I want to say the first one I saw, the Drive-By Truckers, and I can't remember if it was an AthFest or just they happened to be playing, but I think it was AthFest, and they were playing at a pizza place that was on Baxter Street.
Oh, wow.
It was like maybe outside, like on a deck. And I got my friend to go with me to that one. And then I want to say the next year, my brother played AthFest. And so with his band, the Blue Laws, and so I got to go to that AthFest, and that was really cool. Nice. That might have been when Jason Isbell joined.
Yeah, it probably was 2001.
2001.
Because I think they were on tour for the Southern Rock Opera.
And so that time they were in the main stage, and it was on Washington Street on the whole other side, I want to say.
Okay.
It wasn't where the 40 Watt is. It was like where Wild Wing Cafe used to be. On Washington Street Tavern. It was on that side. And I remember seeing Jason Isbell just come up, and he had this powder blue suit on, and it was really cool. One of the first bands I'd seen when I moved to Athens and had just started school was Drive-By Truckers and this little pizza joint, and here they were like on this gigantic stage with all of these people. And between 99 and 2001.
I got into them in 2004.
Yeah.
But I was 18. It was, I don't know that you can appreciate them much younger than that. They're pretty complex. They talk
definitely. I don't think I appreciated them as much as I do now. Even.
Yeah, more and more. Yeah.
Gosh, I remember being at the 40 Watt and it being like the bass knocking beers off like the speakers and them breaking, and I just remember that sound and the vibrations. I think music is healing.
I remember the floor of the 40 Watt after those homecoming shows back in the day. It's so much better now.
Oh, so much better.
Everybody is like so much more polite too. Everybody picks up their trash. And back in the day, there would literally be like broken glass everywhere, and it was just a pool of beer.
Oh, stickiness.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, 100%.
I remember taking photos of it afterward. It literally just looked like a crime scene.
Oh, and they used to have these hand towels that it just.
That's right. They're the never-ending.
It wasn't like
so gross.
It was like, oh gosh, I hope there's some kind of sanitizer in there. But yeah, now I do think they are on it now. If someone spills something, they are.
Well, there's that, but also the clientele. Everybody's gotten older. Everybody.
Sure.
I remember I was 22 the first time I came to homecoming, and I just turned 40. And I was the young one back then. Everybody else was like a few years older than I was, like one of the younger people when I first started coming. The people that have been coming for 20 years a lot of them are like in their 60s and stuff. It's kind of crazy. I grew up with these people.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like too, I would say if I had to tell you what band I've seen the most, it's Drive-By Truckers.
Oh yeah. Hands down for me too, but
and then maybe Centromatic.
I've only seen them a handful of times, but I was at the Georgia Theater shows where they opened for the Truckers right after they reopened it, and of course I've seen him play with them solo quite a bit too.
Yeah, and now he's playing with Jason Isbell.
Yeah, he's
cool.
Playing
Will Johnson.
Yeah, he's
playing
drums. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I haven't seen. I'm going to Shoals Fest this year, but I haven't seen Jason play since the Shoals Fest in 2021. I've seen Jason a lot over the years, but there's something about the big venues, the NPR donor crowd, which God bless them, but it's not what I'm necessarily looking for in a show.
I get that for sure in our show.
Yeah, and I heard that was a phenomenal show.
It was a great show. It really was.
Yeah, and I really enjoy when I go to see him. It just doesn't feel like the kind of thing. You go see the Truckers play 3 nights in a row. It's a totally different show every night.
Oh, 100%.
You never know what they're going to do. It's in a smaller room. It's never an ordeal. You know what I mean? It's where it feels like to go to some of these bigger shows, it becomes a thing.
And they do. I feel like they've done a really good job of not making it very hugely expensive, like their shows. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's super expensive to tour these days. And prices have gone up everywhere. But I do think they still have kept them as reasonable as possible.
I think so.
And they'll do the occasional big beach resort gig or whatever, which is probably a pretty good payday for them. And it's just like, okay, a lot of the fans are just priced out of that, and that's fine because they're gonna do all these other shows too that are like accessible. Like there's always the 40 watt.
100%, and they'll always do the 40 watt, and that is magical to know. I'll always go to one of them every year. I have a great friend, Rachel, and I always go to the homecoming shows. She also went to Shoals Fest, and I ended up going last year with her. I wasn't going to go at first, but then someone couldn't go, and so they were selling their ticket for a little bit of a discount, and I was like, okay, maybe this is...
Which I also got to say, shout out to Jason for that fest is very reasonably priced.
Yes.
Too. I think it was like, it's under $200 for a 2-day ticket. Like, that's great. I mean... And
Waxahachie was there last year, and MJ Lindemann.
I saw Waxahachie open for Wilco
a
couple years ago, and that was special. That was a really cool show.
That sounds really special.
But I've never seen them headline or anything like that.
Yeah, I saw them at the Georgia Theater, I want to say in like 2021, 22-ish. And that was like my first time seeing them live. But
so is this your first time playing AthFest?
This is my second time.
Your second time, okay.
Yeah. So I played last year.
You did play last year, okay. I was here and I covered, but you know how it is. There's how many bands and how many stages?
So many bands
and like,
so many stages.
Were you on the club crawl last year?
I was.
Yeah, and that makes it harder because there's more stages. And
no, I got super lucky last year. I didn't apply to be in last year, but I had asked someone if they had any openings for singer-songwriters anytime soon, and it just so happened that they had one for AthFest and the Globe. And I was like,
I've performed at the Globe too.
That's amazing. Yes, that'd be amazing. And so that was like a huge deal for me. And then this year I applied for AthFest as early as I possibly could. And it means a lot to me to be able to play AthFest because going to it for so long, for so many years, it's a very important festival to me. And to be a part of it is just such an honor, watching my brother and his band be a part of it. To me being a part of it, and then all the years in between, it's just very magical. Last year, after I played, a teenager came up to me and told me how much my songs meant to her. And I just was like, oh my God, thank you so much. It was just really beautiful. And it's, oh gosh, to be able to have that experience, again, using the word magical.
And what's also like really beautiful about it to me is that like the city turns out for it. Like we talk about how there's 20 clubs and 150 bands or whatever going on playing all weekend, but every single one of those clubs is packed.
Yeah.
And the streets are completely filled. It's people show up for it too.
Yeah.
And that's really amazing. And that's the other side, I think, of the music scene that we haven't really talked about is there are just really good fans in Athens.
I 1,000%
people
agree.
that just are really good at loving shit.
And just not caring not having a care in the world about it and being like, I'm just going to dance because this music is incredible. And I love that. I saw Normal Town Sound Machine over the weekend. And
yeah, I've had Ben on the show.
Yeah, Ben's great.
He's a sweetheart. I really wanted to, it was like, I'm already here for a week. And so I was like, I can't. I wanted to come and be here for like 10 days and go to that. But I was like, I gotta wait.
It was
I don't get to see him play in 2 other bands.
Exactly.
So,
no, you'll definitely. And I think they've been working on a new album. They have a new video out that's really cool.
Yeah, it's great.
But yeah, seeing just everybody show up for that, and so happy to see them. And I think there's a bit of a contagious feeling of happiness going to a show and just seeing this incredible music and being lucky enough that these are your friends that you get to know on a personal level. And I think Ben's the best guitarist in Athens.
Yeah. He very well might be.
Yeah.
But I'm also
and there's so many that I shouldn't say.
Well, it's also just you like what you like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily mean.
No, I think
you like what you like.
I should say my favorite guitarist.
Yeah.
I should say that. And I have many favorite guitarists in Athens, though, that's for sure. And many favorite songwriters. And there's not a lack of great bands. And
no, like I have occasionally been into Athens where I didn't have anything to do that night, and then I would just like, wander into Normal Bar or go into Roadhouse or just like whatever, and there'd be some holy shit, that's X from X playing just this dive bar tonight. You never know like who you're gonna see just like, show up. And
that's for sure.
Yeah, you literally can just like wander around downtown Athens pretty much any night, and you're gonna find something really amazing going on.
1000%.
So sometimes it can be these little things that just like break us, and it's like there's these big things that we get through, and we're like, okay, I made it through that, and then there's this little tiny thing that happens after that, and we're like, okay, I'm done, it's done. So, this is about that. It's called Not One Thing. It's not one thing, it's another. It's not one thing, it's all the others. They pile up on me. Makes it hard to stay. It's not one thing.
So I've really enjoyed talking to you, but I want to make sure there's nothing that I haven't had any blind spots. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think you want to talk about or share? I've gotten to this point in the conversation with somebody and they'd be like, I also paint. Or something.
I used to paint.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's
than
kind of why I
anything,
asked
yeah.
this sort of question.
I come from a family like a lot of these paintings are my Uncle Henry. He painted these, and I grew up. My aunt taught me how to paint, and so I definitely want to get back into it. I won't say that I've been painting lately. I've definitely been focusing on the music, but there are lots of things, knitting, and I feel like hobbies. I just don't have as much time for hobbies as I would like to have for them. But
where do you draw the line between whether it's like a hobby or like is your music a hobby?
Hey, it might be.
I don't know. I just don't know. Like
no, I
don't think it is, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
But my point though is it like seriously, like at what, like where is that line for you? Because I think you very obviously don't view your music as a hobby, right? But it sounds like you view painting as a hobby.
Yeah, I definitely view painting as a hobby. I think it's the frequency.
Okay.
And I think it's the time that we devote to things and like wanting to devote time to something, but then not necessarily finding it. And
so it has nothing to do with professionalizing it or anything like that. Really, to you, it's really about the amount of effort and the amount of like time you put into it.
Yeah, I think so.
That makes sense.
And being able, obviously, it's been years since I painted, and that's another reason
And like, I don't think there's like a right answer to that
Yeah.
question. I was just kind of curious, like where the line was for you.
But sometimes I draw still.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that.
Do you ever make your own flyers for your shows or anything like that?
I've made, and I'm lucky to have great friends who are artists, and I did a show with July Woman and Hope Cochran. I think I mentioned her, the guitarist, and July Woman, Emma, created this beautiful flyer, hand drawn, and I love that. I want to do that for my next flyer potentially, because I've seen a lot more of that around town lately. Are these just beautiful hand drawn flyers, and it seems like that's an art form coming back that people are rejecting, like
I think we're seeing a big reaction to the AI thing, where it's like people are leaning back in harder into hand-drawn stuff.
Yeah.
Not like I think podcasts like this, I don't make this because I want it to be popular or anything. I think it should be, because I think I have really interesting conversations with amazing people. But I don't make it because I want it to be like whatever. But I do think this type of content where people are just sitting down having a real conversation, it's gonna be there's like a big resurgence of that, I think, already starting to happen, of what people want to pay attention to. There's so much of and I talked about this with Hardy Morris, and he called it TikTok brain, where it's just like the way we've listened to music and everything is all changed too. So I think we're gonna start seeing, I think it's part of why vinyl has come back, right?
Yes.
The tangible,
like talking, that came up a few times. Yeah.
I think there's something about that, the hand-drawn flyer, I think it's gonna be a because Stavros Halkias talks about this quite a bit. He's one of my favorite comics, but he's talked about this on his podcast, where it's like AI was supposed to do all the boring shit so we could make art. And it's like now we're still doing our own dishes and laundry, and AI's making the art. It's
AI
like, what the fuck is going on?
That's so true. That's so true. And absolutely, I have a hard time getting away from AI at my job, because
I think that people need to be a little more nuanced when they talk about AI too, because there's a difference between generative AI and problem solving, analytical AI, and or even just like the way you use AI, right? Like, people using AI to fully generate content is fucking garbage, but using it as a tool so you can make something maybe a little bit more polished or professional, when you don't have the means to hire somebody to do that, like that's a different story than, I'm not gonna hire somebody because I can use AI, right?
Yeah, it's like, how can you use AI to make your life easier, to make your job easier, to do, like you said, to do those mundane things, so that you can focus on. But
even with your job, and maybe not with I don't want to say your job, but with people's jobs, it's still just making their corporate or overlords more money, right?
Oh,
like
1,000,
our work week is still, and I think about the Lee Baines song, In Remembrance of the 40-Hour Week, like the technology is advanced, and all that has changed is like the expectation of productivity.
Oh, I definitely see that, I'm sure.
Instead of, now you can do 80 hours. Well, you can do what used to take 80 hours in 20 hours. Oh, you're going to work 40 hours still, but now you just got to do more.
Fortunately, at least from my side and with my job.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about I don't know anything about your job. So
I'll just say that it has at least let me focus on the more interesting aspects, and then I don't have to an Excel sheet. I can say, hey, analyze this Excel sheet for me. Little things like that, but I definitely.
We're doing like transcriptions.
Yeah, transcriptions. Yeah, for sure. Meeting notes.
Yeah, like
things like that. but yeah, and I definitely also have a fear of AI, and I also have a fear of not being able to, like, worrying that it's affecting our intelligence, like leaning on this. And
I don't know if it's something in the water or if it's AI but the stupid is real.
Yeah, no,
this has been a wonderful
yeah.
vacation from the stupid though. So
Yes,
thank
absolutely.
you
No,
so much.
thank you so much for coming out, and it has felt just like a conversation. Like, there are times I've forgotten that we're recording.
Cool. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
That was my conversation with MK Barnes. I hope you enjoyed it. I really just love her lyrics so much. I think she's got really great songwriting sensibilities, and I'm really excited to see what her next record sounds like. I heard several new songs when I saw her play at Hendershots, and they were awesome. Please hit subscribe, share this episode with your friends. I think we're going to have David Barbie next week, and then we'll have our AthFest episodes. So click subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening, y'all. I really appreciate it. We got lots more coverage from AthFest coming your way. Take us out of here, Sloan.